What's going on, Lions fans? Your two favorite faces, your two favorite hosts, best Detroit Lions content there is. Hit that subscribe button. It's not a matter of if we're the best. It's not confidence. It's just facts. William,
Yes, sir.
what's on the menu today? What are we talking? What are we diving into? It's kind of quiet. It's kind of nice being, having this bye week and not having anything going on. It's a little quiet, so I feel like we got some open airwaves here to kind of discuss whatever we want. What's on your mind?
I think the Detroit Lions have quietly got phenomenal news. Just phenomenal news break after phenomenal news break. I feel like under the radar. Uh, and I think we should just talk about some of those things. The big one, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to say the big one. I feel like it could be a big one though. Is Ennis Rakestraw might be back, and just in time. So found out, wasn't expecting it. I thought Carlton Davis would be back for the playoff run, but Coach Campbell stood at the podium and said Carlton Davis probably out for the season, but Ennis Rakestraw trending in the right direction. Are you excited to potentially see Ennis Rakestraw?
I'm excited and I'm a little nervous. I'm excited because going into preseason, this was a player that a lot of people were saying was playing better than Terry Arnold. All right, they were saying that he's looking better. He's looked better in man coverage. He's out there being more physical. Injuries have kind of derailed his season a little bit here. What makes me nervous is I'm glad he's coming back, but I don't want an unproven rookie out there during these playoff games. That's the only thing that makes me a little nervous. I don't know. I don't know exactly what we have out of him yet. All right. Amik Robertson's playing good. Arnold's playing good. Our secondary's been the glue of this defense. Luckily, it's been the one thing that's been the most consistent piece to the Detroit Lions defense. So just thinking about him on the field in the most meaningful situations, it just kind of makes me a little nervous. But Uncle Will can talk me off the ledge. He can calm me down if he says the right words. I'm not against the idea, but I would have rather have seen him, like week 10 against the Tennessee Titans, if I'm being honest, instead of NFC championship game potentially. You know what I mean?
I mean, I did see him against the Tennessee Titans, but I will say, I will say this. What I'm hearing is, and guys, hey, comment about it and get them in the comments right now. I'm hearing that. Hey, listen, why put that unproven rookie out there when I got Kendall Vildor? That's what I feel like I'm hearing you floating around. Like, would you
I
rather
I didn't
see
I
Kendall
didn't
Vildor out
I
there?
didn't
Because
say
I
all
feel
those.
like
I didn't say all that, William. Don't be putting words in my mouth. No, I didn't even mention his name. Okay.
hey, you said unproven rookie out there. Worried because that's the next option. Listen, know what Kendall Vildor is. I'm not going to sit up here and bash him. I don't look at him like I looked at a guy like James Houston, but uh, I am very excited to see what Ennis Rakestraw is. Same thing that you said. There was some talks about maybe that he might even be better man to man than Terry and Arnold. There was some talks about in camp he had some days where he looked better than Terry. I'm not going to speak to that like it's a real thing. Didn't see it, don't know. But what I did do is I watched I think it was 46 or 47 snaps that he's played so far this season on defense and about 95 on special teams. The guy's tough. He's tough. He will tackle. I love that about him. In coverage, it just wasn't enough on film for me to give a true evaluation. He didn't have a lot of man to man, but what I did like, you got an opportunity to see him bounce around. He's played in the slot in those 46. He's played on the outside. He's played on the short side. He's played on the wide side. So they've bounced him around. They've used him in different ways, even though we have just a very, very small sample size. So I'm interested for him to get an opportunity with us having the opportunity to go back to Kendall Vildor if we're not liking what we're seeing. I think that this is a prime opportunity. The reason why I say that it's a huge deal because it's literally happening at perfect timing for the Detroit Lions. We got a guy who honestly, Steve, we talked about it on here. He was a guy that we were talking about maybe might get drafted by the Detroit Lions at the end of the first round. So it just so happens that we got Terry and Arnold and we got Ennis Rakestraw. So he's a guy that could have been a first round draft pick, man, that uh, we're getting right in time for probably the two most important football games of Detroit Lions history. So that's what really excites me. And that's why I think that it's a huge deal because if he steps up and plays some really, really good football, now we're looking at having just a guy who can step in. We've seen it. Terry Arnold's a little banged up right now. Brian Branch has a calf that he's been dealing with all year. There at any given time, we could need an additional corner to step in. I've said it a bunch of times. I've seen way too much Kendall Vildor this season. So maybe we got a guy who is just a little bit of a step up from Kendall Vildor, or definitely has a bigger ceiling than Kendall Vildor. So that's what really excites me about the whole situation. And that's why I say that it is an absolute huge deal, because if that dude comes in and plays some really damn good football, now that dime package and things that Aaron Glenn does can get really creative. Or like I said, man, he's just another guy on special teams. He's got 95 snaps on special teams, and that guy is flying around. He's elusive on special teams, running down as like a gunner type of guy. Just another great athlete to put out there.
It was kind of like the only knock we really had on him when we were talking about him in the draft process was injuries. Can he stay on the football field? That's really been the only knock on him this season. He hasn't been on a football field. Like you said, not a whole lot of tape to really dissect and look at. I feel like when you're a rookie, if we don't have to talk about you and you're playing football, you're playing good football. It's kind of like what we were talking about with Cam Sutton last year. Like everyone was ripping Cam Sutton at the end of the year. We didn't have to talk about Cam Sutton for the other 16 games. I feel like that's the same boat for most players. Like we don't talk a lot about Jack Campbell. He just goes out and plays football. We don't talk a lot about a lot of different players. If you just go out and play football, Stephen Will don't have to talk about you on a show. All right. And we'll give you praise if you play good. But I think that if he were to get on the field, I just want to see comfortability. All right. This is no time for errors. All right. Our margin for errors is very, very slim now in the playoffs. You don't have a lot of margin for mistakes here. So that's what concerns me is unproven rookie, not a lot of tape, not a lot of playing time, special teams, and then coming in and playing against the best teams in the NFC, potentially the Super Bowl. It's a big question mark for me. Kendall Vildor, on the other hand, I understand he had that terrible game in the NFC Championship game, but other than that, when he's came in this season, I don't think he's had really any bad games that come to my mind. I mean, am I wrong there? Has he had like a game where he just got absolutely torched?
I feel like you can tell when he's in a football game. Now, is it the worst thing ever in the history of the world? He's got some penalties this season. He has gotten beat a few times. I do feel like you can tell when he's in a football game. I'm not going to use the word absolute liability like I would in some of the linebacker play when we didn't have Alex Anzalone, but I will say that I would prefer that we were going a different direction than having Kendall Vildor taking meaningful snaps at corner. Now, if we're talking about special teams, if we're talking about giving somebody a break here or there, I'm fine with it, but him starting outside for either of the next two football games, I would be very nervous about.
Because I remember when Terran Arnold got banged up against the Vikings, he went out, and I can't remember the situation. I can't remember what the score was. I know it was later in the game. The only chance I thought Minnesota has or had at the time was to attack Kendall Vildor with Justin Jefferson, or try to get him in a mismatch with Jordan Addison. Try to make a play against a guy who's not our best cover guy. All right, we'll try to be nice tonight. He's not our best cover guy. I would have taken all the shots in the world at him. I remember. I don't really like to name drop former Lions, but you remember Amani Oruwariye?
I do.
That dude was a liability that a teams attacked and went after when he was with the Detroit Lions. He went from being a Pro Bowl caliber player. I think he led the league in interceptions as a corner. Very impressive. The very next season, I feel like he got exposed. I remember a game against the Minnesota Vikings. They had a guy by the name of Adam Thielen. He could not cover Adam Thielen to save his life. I was watching that game with a good friend of ours from work who's a Vikings fan, and I said, I wouldn't even call another play in the playbook. I would just throw it at whoever Amani Oruwariye is covering. I don't want to have that feeling with Ennis Rakestraw, Kendall Vildor, and I don't. So I don't know, Will. That's my only concern. It's a minor concern. If you're putting at the end of the day, if you're putting the quarterback on his ass, it doesn't matter what's going on in the secondary. That's literally always going to be my bread and butter. I'm a trenches guy. If you're dominating on the defensive line, it don't matter what's going on in that secondary.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. And I agree with you. I just don't know that we can guarantee that we're going to be dominating in the trenches. I think we're going to have to continue to get creative to create pressure on these quarterbacks. But Coach Glenn is figuring out a way to do it, so I'm not too worried about it, honestly. But another reason, Steve, that I think that this is huge good news for the Detroit Lions is finding a way to win that Minnesota Vikings game. that Alex Anzalone that we saw, he was a madman. He was flying around. He looked like nothing was wrong with him. But I watched a couple of interviews of his since then, and he's talked about how tremendously sore he is. He said the day after was an absolute nightmare. So that goes to show how important that bye week was. So that's just getting the bye week is phenomenal for just our team in general. But for a guy like Alex Anzalone, had he not had that bye week, do I believe that he would have played? I do. But he would have been battling, man. He would have been battling because he said that he was really beat up. The arm was really beat up after that game. So that's another reason, man. I just feel like the stars are kind of finally aligning for the Detroit Lions in a way that we're starting to get some breaks, man. I feel like all year, every single game, we're getting somebody banged up. Shoot, we lost Terry and Arnold in this game, but we get the break of, hey, man, he's going to be back to be able to play in the football game. We get the bye week, which helps us out tremendously. Another one, David Montgomery is going to be back, right? I just feel like, man, this is just good news after good news after good news for the Detroit Lions. Everything is kind of just coming together just right at that right time. So now all we need is Hutch, man, for the Super Bowl.
Okay, I hope so. But real quick, did you see? I saw like the extended version of the locker room celebration for the Lions after the game on Sunday. Did you see what Dan Campbell said right when he came into the locker room?
I didn't.
He ran right up to David Montgomery and said, "You got a couple more weeks.
Mm.
You got a couple more weeks to heal up." And he dapped him up. Man, it got me fired up. Like I'm thinking that's who Dan Campbell went to. Like this is one of our bell cows we could really use. He's got a couple more weeks to heal up. But what else is going on in the Detroit Lions world today, William?
Hey, we got a whole bunch of fucking all pros on this team. A whole bunch of
not all of them made the Pro Bowl though. Not all of them made the Pro Bowl, which is crazy
yeah.
to me. But yeah, we do have a whole list of all pros.
Yeah, we're looking at. I got them right here. We're looking at. Let's start with who should have been in the Pro Bowl and Kirby Joseph, the best safety.
That's
in the
okay. We plan
league.
on playing in the Super Bowl, so it don't matter.
There you go. Panay Sewell, Monroe St. Brown. My boy Fox, man. Foxy is out there just putting the ball. Just when he does have to punt the ball, rarely he's kicking the shit out of the ball and putting them inside the 20. So he's doing this thing, changing field position. And then we got on the second team, we got Frank Ragnow, which kind of surprised me, man. My the center from the Kansas City, was it Kansas? No, who was it? Was it Kansas City Chiefs center? Like, who got him?
Well, is all pro dictated by? I don't know exactly. Is it all pro based on conference or is it NFL? Because if it's by okay, then
I can't remember.
Creed Humphrey for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I did see. I'd seen his name on the list. And then trying to think, it was Turpin. Turpin got Raymond, but Raymond was second team, man. So I love it, man. I was a little bit surprised not to see Brian Branch on there, but
disrespect.
I Humphrey, man. Humphrey got him from the Ravens, Marlon Humphrey. So I mean, I get it, man. He's a dog. I mean, it is what it is. So, man.
Did you see who else got a vote? I tipped my head a little bit. You see who got a vote? No. Aiden Hutchinson got one All-Pro vote, and he has not played football since week 5.
That's when you're really a dog, man.
Yeah, that's when you know you're on GOAT status because the dude hasn't played football in 13 weeks, and he's still being considered an All-Pro. That's an ultimate sign of respect. And people are other teams
got a vote too.
Did he?
Yeah, he got a vote too.
He should. I mean, he had a good season. He had over 1,000. What did he end up with? Eight touchdowns, I think, something like that. I mean, he had a damn good year.
I seen a cool stat today on First Take, and so I don't want to take credit for it, but Jameson Williams, for any 1,000-yard rusher this season, had the least amount of targets and the least amount of touches to get his 1,000 yards. I mean that.
Yeah, I think he was like 4th in yards per catch or something like that. He was top 5. Like he averaged like 18.3 yards per catch or something crazy like that. So yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if he got a vote. He deserves it. He had a good year. And he didn't touch the ball. Off the top of my head, just purely guessing, I would say he only touched the ball 50 sometimes with a 2-game suspension. I'd say it's somewhere in that ballpark.
I'm not even gonna guess. I don't know what it is. I have to bring it up, but
it's crazy.
Just that stat. That stat I thought was pretty cool, man. Just to see, it took him the least amount of touches of anybody on that list to get his 1,000 yards, man. I just think that there's some really cool stuff going in Detroit, man. When offensively and defensively, obviously, but offensively, we have multiple 1,000-yard rushers. We got multiple 1,000-yard receivers. Like, it's kind of crazy what's going on offensively. I feel like we're not talking enough about Sam Laporta or Sam Laporta.
I was literally just typing in
Yeah,
his looking up
yeah,
his stats as you said
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. We're not, but I feel like he's got deemed of having a down year, but I feel like he hasn't been healthy all year. He's been battling through some stuff. You can see it obviously, and there's just so much going on with. There's only one football, and Timothy Patrick has decided that he needs to get a couple of touches too. So I mean, what's going on here, man? There's only one football to go around, but we're still got the 1,000 this, 1,000 that. Man, Timothy's getting what Timothy have 4 touchdowns. Like, man, it's exciting, man. This offense, and just to think there's a good chance that we're going to see this same offense coming back. Timothy's going to be a free agent, but hey, I would imagine that he's going to get signed. He's probably not going to be asking for crazy money. Khalif will be back. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Lagoda. Like this, we could be looking at this exact same offense. Both our running backs are through 2027. Like I told you, my dream is this. Get Kevin Zeitler another 1-year deal, but instead of starting him, make him the reserve guy, bring in Christian Mahogany, and now if anything happens and you need a guard, you just put Kevin Zeitler there. You can extend his career maybe a few more seasons because he's not going to have the wear and tear that he has, but he's still a guy that I would be trying to have in the building. Or if he's dead set on starting, let him compete for the position.
I don't think it's much of a competition. That dude's one of the most underrated offensive lineman interior that I've ever seen. Sam Laporta, just looking at his stats, 60 catches, 726 yards, 7 touchdowns. Yeah, that's a down year compared to what he had last year. I mean, those were numbers. He put up almost 1,000, over 10 touchdowns. That was going to be hard to duplicate. I said that at the beginning of the season. Like, I don't even want to call it a sophomore slump. Like, this is still a nice season. And yeah, Sam Laporta was banged up at the beginning of the year. I think he was still nursing that knee injury that he had late in the season last year. 726 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's a pretty good career, well, I mean, it is a good career if you can average that. Good season considering all those guys you just named. Like, we have one football and he's still getting plenty of touches. I think he's come on late the last few weeks as well. So I think that's when we really need him is I'd rather have him now than in the first 4 weeks of the season. Like, it's meaningful football still back then, but right now is when I want this team on fire, hot, healthy, hard to beat.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree 100%, man. And he's been finding a way to find little holes in the defenses, even though he just doesn't look the same. He was looking kind of speedy and elusive, especially for a tight end last year. He just doesn't look like he's got that same burst, but he's finding a way to get it done. So I'm hoping after we get to Super Bowl, he takes some time off and he comes back 100% healthy, and we can go ahead and get that 1,000 next year. But
last question,
what you got?
Is it all but final that Dan Campbell is going to be coach of the year in the NFL?
Man, I've kind of adopted the Detroit Lions mentality at this point, man, because I think it's weird that it's not a no-brainer, but I will say this. I just care about the Super Bowl at this point. All Pro is cool. Pro Bowl is cool. Winning the division is cool. Like all this stuff is cool, but it's about that Super Bowl. Never had one in Detroit, and it's gonna be special. I think you retweeted it today when Coach L let Amon-Ra know that he was an All Pro again, second season, and what he said was, "Okay, I'm pumped. Let's go win the Super Bowl." I think everybody is kind of on that same page, man. None of this stuff really matters, and it's all gonna really take care of itself. You go out and you win a Super Bowl, the other stuff is gonna come. Kirby Joseph said the same thing when we were talking about the Pro Bowl. Hey man, I'm planning on playing in the Super Bowl, so it is what it is. I've heard David Montgomery mission it. These guys are focused, they're dialed in, they know what the mission is, man. All this other stuff, it is what it is. If he gets coach of the year or not, hopefully he's gonna be touting the Super Bowl ring.
I love the energy. I love the thesis behind it. I don't love the politician's answer when I ask you a question, is Dan Campbell coach of the year, and you deflect and you just dodge because
I told the truth though. Like I think
it should be a no-brainer. I mean, yeah, maybe I guess.
Be a no-brainer. It should be a no-brainer, man.
It should be because a lot of people were saying that game Monday or Sunday against the Chiefs was Kevin O'Connell versus Dan Campbell for coach of the year. And I'm with you. I personally don't give two shits if he wins coach of the year. it's something to talk about. It's a conversation for content creators to have. Same thing we did with Aiden Hutchinson when he got jobbed out of Rookie of the Year. We talk about it. At the end of the day, I would trade Coach of the Year 1,000 times for one Super Bowl, without a doubt. That's something that I mean, obviously we've never seen it. I'd like to see a dynasty begin. I'd like to see the 30 for 30 start in Detroit on a like a summer, early spring day back in 2021, or whenever we drafted Penei Sewell, because that's really when it all started. I'd like to see that 30 for 30 come out on ESPN. A Super Bowl ring means way more than a Coach of the Year, an MVP, any of that stuff. But I think without a doubt, he's Coach of the Year. I don't think it's close. He's exceeded expectations, and the expectations were to win. Not many people predicted the Lions were going to win 15 games. Most of us had us in that 11 to 13 range, somewhere in there. 14 was kind of crazy. We even beat that and won 15 games. So he exceeded expectations, won his division, won the NFC. Bring home that Super Bowl. That's the only thing I ask, William. Just give me one before I die. That's the saying, right?
No, I want 10. I don't want one. What are we talking about?
Wait,
I told
you can't have $1. You can't have $10 without getting $1,
20. I want a 25-year dynasty. I'm not. Listen, I'm not messing around with it. Like in all seriousness, man, I do think we're doing it the right way, though, and I'm not going to turn this into a how Brad Holmes is building this situation, but I do feel like we were on to something here. We got young guys. We built it through the draft. When we get a veteran, we get a veteran that makes sense, and we don't just blindly sign people. What I mean by that is somebody like Tracy Walker. If you remember, Dan Campbell loved Tracy Walker. When we signed him originally, when we re-signed him, it was like, man, super excited. But when it no longer made sense, we did the tough thing, and we had to let him go. So it's not like everybody talks about how loyal Coach Campbell is and Brad is and this franchise is. We are loyal, and we are like we keep the guys that have built this thing up or have been here if it makes sense. That's another thing, and I'll leave it at this because we're going to talk about it more. I'm so sick of hearing people say that Brad Holmes will never make a splash move. I don't think, and this is me thinking, I don't know. I don't know, but this is my thought process. He hasn't made a splash move because it hasn't made sense, but contractually, it's going to start to make sense when you don't need anything. Now, when I get to a point to where, what do we need on offense? What do we need? What do we have to have?
Nothing.
So on defense, what do we need? We need an edge rusher. So, man, if there's a splash move to be made and it's the only thing I need,
might see a splash.
Now that splash might happen. If it's a splash that completely puts us over the hump, then maybe you'll see it. But it's all about it making sense, not that he won't do it. He's making the moves that make sense. So pretty much what I just said is Will's guaranteeing that Micah Parsons is probably going to be. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking. But I do see at some point, and I am joking, guys, seriously. But
I don't know that he is.
I do see at some point he's going to make a splash move and he's going to surprise some people. He's not locked into things being a certain type of way. He's locked into capitalizing on the best thing that's out there.
If I'm being honest, I would rather Brad Holmes not make splashes in free agency. I would rather him make splashes in the draft. I think that's where he's an absolute demon. Nobody can mess with Brad Holmes in the draft. And when you draft people, you get them sometimes cheaper and sometimes longer, and they're usually a lot younger. I would rather him nail drafts like he's been doing for the past 3 years, 4 years. We opened this episode with Ennis Rakestraw. He's not getting on the field. If he were healthy, I don't know that he'd be getting on the field. That's just how the Detroit Lions are built. Like, we have draft picks that we're hitting on, potential first rounders, can't see a football field because there's so much depth in front of them. We have a good problem on our hands. So, I mean, Brad Holmes' his misses in free agency and in the draft are so minuscule that it's not even worth mentioning. He's made the right moves at the right time, and you're right. He hasn't made a splash, and I thought you were going to throw in the word yet. When he does, Like you said, it'll be something meaningful and something that
Yeah, well,
you'll say, dang, this makes a lot of sense for the next 3 to 4 years, depending on who it is and what the contract looks like.
I think the weight though, it's about the weight now. Now, when you're drafting at the top of the draft, number 2, and you're drafting Aiden Hutchinson, yeah, building through the draft makes a lot more sense. But when you're trying to find your new edge rusher at 32, now maybe that splash move in free agency makes more sense. And that's where I'm going with it. Maybe now it's time to trade that pick and we got extra pieces. And I don't want to turn this into a trade show or a splash show, but just thinking about this aspect of it, we have extra guys, right? When everybody's healthy, now we got guys that could be starting other places, right? I'm not trying to do anything with Demo, but just a prime example. He could be the premier featured back starting somewhere. I don't want any of our safeties to go anywhere, but Ife Melifonwu could probably be starting at safety somewhere else and not fighting and jockeying for a position. All right. Our secondary, Amik, who was battling to get on the field, he could be a starting corner somewhere else, man. Or if not, maybe it's Ennis Rakestraw that could be the guy that's starting somewhere else. Or you know what I mean? We have guys who are high value guys that could be
You want
starting.
to just give the whole game plan away for the
I'm just,
for the
and that's what I'm
future
saying though. Like,
shows, Will? You want just
I'm just people get into these comments, man, and they say, "Oh man, he's never gonna do this. He's never gonna do that." It's all about things aligning and things making sense. When you got too many guys,
There's a word we're going to be using a lot this offseason, and it's going to be the word luxury. All right, we'll just leave it at that.
yep,
We've already had conversations about some things that could happen. Don't
yeah,
want to spill the beans too early. Anything else tonight, Will?
man. Just I can't wait to see who we got, man. I'm happy for the guys in their break, but I'm itching, man. I'm
Yeah,
itching.
I need an opponent to look forward to. Even like when we had a bye week in week 5, you had an opponent to look forward to. Now
Yep.
we just sit and wait. We have no idea who we're going to play. It could be Washington, could be Green Bay, could be Minnesota, the Rams. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll find out. Well, I guess we could technically find out. I don't know who plays tomorrow or Sunday, but we'll find out here in a couple days. Stick around,
Yep.
hit that like button. We'll be back later with another show.